Alright, so I'm Benjamin Hernandez, and this is my assessment text rewrite. I'm doing SpongeBob SquarePants. Alright, and then I'm doing the first scene. He did not know where he was. Presumably, SpongeBob was in the chum bucket. But there was no way of satisfying his taste buds. He was in a horrible, crabby, pattyless cell with walls of chum everywhere he looked. Concealed jellyfish lanterns bathed the room in a non-goofy light. There was a low, steady crackling sound, which he had to guess had something to do with the devious chum bucket. A rough coral-filled bench, just wide enough to sit on, ran around the wall, interrupted solely by the chum door, and at the far end, an intimidating coral-filled toilet bowl. There were 4 Karen lookalikes, one in each chum wall. An intense craving for Krabby Patties dramatically hit SpongeBob. It had been there ever since they rudely captured him and violently threw him into the chum mobile and drove off. He was always hungry, with his bottomless gut in need of Krabby Patties. It was utter torture to be surrounded by nothing but chum. It must have been a whole day since he had been stripped away from his beloved Krusty Krab. It might even be 2. SpongeBob still did not know, and probably never would know. Whether it had been morning or evening when they captured him. Since he was captured, he had not been given a single Krabby Patty, fueling his endless hunger. He was restless, singing the Goofy Goober song on the coral bench, dancing up and down, still with hope that Mr. Krabs would save him. He was being yelled at by all the Karens, but the craving for Krabby Patties was slowly draining his goofy energy. Without any Krabby Patties in sight, how long could SpongeBob really last? He thought there was no way Mr. Krabs and Squidward wouldn't save him. SpongeBob stared and started to scream for his friends. Mr. Krabs! Squidward! Patrick! Anyone! Please, I'm hungry! I'm so hungry! SpongeBob's cries of agony was met with silence. Nothing but the chum wall, grotesque slushing was heard. Until, SpongeBob! Yelled a Karen. Look, SpongeBob! We have all your friends as well. SpongeBob's goofiness began to fade. A hopeless feeling began to wash over him. SpongeBob began to think. Was there any way that all his friends had really been captured by Plankton? Could he really be that powerful? Could people really like his chum more than Krabby Patties? SpongeBob's stench began to muck the air. He did not know how long it had been since he last showered. At least days at any rate. With no clocks and no sign of daylight, it was hard to fathom any sense of time. It was quite an evil place he had been trapped in. Finally, SpongeBob was moved to a different cell. They had put him into a cell similar to the one he was now in, but was more chum and filled with loyal Krusty Krab customers, one even with a tattoo on his ankle. They looked in immense pain and starvation, as if they were put in a similar situation as SpongeBob. They all sat in silence and reeked of despicable, dirty chum. These once happy Bikini Bottom citizens sat lifelessly as their former beloved SpongeBob SquarePants entered the cell. Not even SpongeBob dared to mutter a word to break the grim atmosphere. SpongeBob thought to himself, this must really be the state of the Bikini Bottom now. My friends must be gone. They began to scream in agony to the Karens. "Please, food, anything, please, we're dying." They were only given slots of chum in return. Some were even so hungry that they ate the chum, and those daring enough to do so were taken out of the cell. The prospect of something new enticed even more to eat the chum, till only half remained. The Karens began to even tell the people to eat the chum in a monotone, robotic voice. There began talks about the freedom if you ate the chum, to which most of the prisoners did not believe. The Karens became even louder, continuing to say, "Eat that chum, eat that chum." Though now they even said, "You'll be free." This was enough to get another of that remaining half to eat the chum. Any hope for these people at this point was enough to betray the Krusty Krab. They no longer can resist the urge to eat any longer. 10% of the original amount remained. All you could hear was the cackling of plankton and the slushing of chum. It seemed as if there was even more chum, as if plankton had been acquiring more employees. SpongeBob began to see these employees walking in front of the cell. They had buckets around their head and smelled like the purest form of chum. These employees began to violently throw chum at the captured as if they were intoxicated off chum. The old woman was carried in by a guard, some sort of tattoo on her ankle. She was kicking and screaming desperately for Krabby Patties. She wouldn't stop. She was going insane, and she couldn't handle it anymore. She was vigorously thrown onto SpongeBob, crumpling what was left of his already deteriorating body. With a yell of, "Have the chum bucket!" and noticing SpongeBob was buried underneath her scooted to the other side of the coral bench. "Beg pardon, Mary," she said. "That damn guard with the tattoo threw me onto you." "They don't know how to treat a lady, do they?" She began to stare at SpongeBob a bit as her dirty stench surrounded her. "Pardon," she said. Do I know you?" She continued to stare at him with dilating pupils, grabbing his feeble arm. "I do, don't I?" she said, falling backwards with shut eyes. You're from that damn burger joint, ain't ya? The one I used to love so much." She sat up, turned to have another look. SpongeBob, and seemed immediately to take an immense interest in him. She stared deeply and desperately at him, as if he was a Krabby Patty himself. What's your name, dearie?" she said. "SquarePants?" said SpongeBob. "SquarePants?" said the woman. "That's funny. My name's SquarePants too," she added sentimentally. I had a nephew. He used to work at the Krusty Krab." She might be my aunt, thought SpongeBob. She was about the right age and physique, and it was probable that she'd changed through the years and the chumifying. No one else had spoken to SpongeBob to a surprising extent. The loyal Krusty Krab customers left. You'd think would know SpongeBob. "The best cook in the Bikini Bottom," they called him. Now, not a word uttered his way. They seemed terrified of speaking at all at this point, and above all, of speaking to one another. The terror and hopeless feeling was so strong. The once goofy SpongeBob reduced to a silent, hopeless Bob with nothing but chum and others like him around.